I work reception at a Sydney beachfront hotel. An American woman checked in during summer and immediately complained about the broken air conditioning. I explained it was working fine set to 22 degrees Celsius. She stared at me like I'd spoken Martian. "That's not a real temperature," she said. "Can you set it to a normal number? Like 70. I converted it for her. 70 Fahrenheit is 21 Celsius. She insisted I was lying because 70 is way hotter than 22. I pulled up a conversion chart. She studied it, then said, "This chart is obviously wrong. Numbers don't work that way." She demanded I call maintenance to fix the thermostat's math. I called my manager instead. He explained Celsius. She accused us both of gaslighting her. She wrote a review claiming Australian hotels use fake temperature systems to confuse Americans. She gave us 2 stars. The one positive, staff spoke English. If you're the kind of person who appreciates the truth behind these travel misunderstandings instead of the loudest opinions, you'll want to subscribe now. I bring this level of storytelling to every episode, and subscribers never miss the gems. A tourist asked our Melbourne cafe for normal coffee. I asked what she meant. "You know, regular coffee? Not that weird Australian stuff," I explained. "We serve espresso-based drink slots, flat whites, cappuccinos." She said, "No, just coffee. In a big cup, with free refills?" I told her we don't do drip coffee or free refills. She asked why we were pretending to be fancy. When I suggested an Americano, she said, "I'm not paying $8 for watered-down espresso." She left. Then returned 20 minutes later, asking where the Starbucks was. I gave directions. She said finally, "A real cafe. I manage a Sydney pharmacy." An American man asked for Advil. I showed him our ibuprofen selection, same drug, different brands. He insisted he needed actual Advil, not generic. I explained Advil is ibuprofen, just a brand name. He said, "If it's the same, why does it have a different name?" I showed him the ingredient list, identical. He picked up the Australian brand, studied it, then said, "This doesn't have the FDA approval seal." I explained we use the TGA Therapeutic Goods Administration. He asked if that was legitimate or just an Australian thing. I assured him it's our regulatory body. He said, "But the FDA is the real one. The gold standard." He wanted to know if he could order real Advil from America. I explained that was unnecessary and expensive. He bought nothing, then posted on social media that Australian pharmacies only sell knockoff medications. He warned Americans to bring your own supplies because Australian medicine isn't FDA certified. 3 tourists came in that week asking the same question. Most channels just laugh at stories like these. I decode the mindset behind them, the cultural assumptions, the systems clashes, the comedy of perspective. If that's the kind of analysis you want more of, lock in a subscribe so the algorithm doesn't decide what you see next. I work at a Brisbane restaurant. An American family ordered fish and chips. When I brought the bill, the father studied it carefully, then called me over. "You forgot to add the tip," he said. I explained, tipping isn't mandatory and Australia staff earn proper wages. He looked confused. "So how do servers make money?" I said, "Through our actual salary." He asked how much I earned. I told him roughly $25 per hour. He seemed shocked. "That's almost as much as a teacher." I nodded. He said, "But you're just a waiter." I stayed polite. He then asked how to show appreciation for good service. I suggested simply saying thank you or leaving a small tip if they felt strongly, but it wasn't expected. He processed this, then said, "So you're telling me I could just not tip?" I confirmed. He grinned like he'd discovered a loophole. "Man, I love Australia." He left no tip, and no thank you. I drive for a rideshare in Perth. I picked up an American couple from the airport. The woman asked why I was driving on the wrong side. Explained Australia drives on the left. She said, "But that's so dangerous. Why doesn't Australia just switch?" I said we've driven this way for over a century. She said America drives on the right because it's safer and more logical. I asked what made it more logical. She couldn't answer but insisted it was. Her husband asked if driving on the left caused more accidents. I said, no, our road fatality rate is actually lower than America's per capita. He said, that can't be true. You're driving backwards. I dropped them at their hotel. She asked if Australian Ubers accept real money or just Australian dollars. I confirmed we use Australian dollars. She asked where to exchange her USD. I suggested a bank or exchange office. She seemed annoyed, as if currency exchange was a personal attack. She rated me 4 stars. The review said, driver was nice, but Australia should really fix their roads. I work at Sydney Airport Customs. An American man approached my desk, furious. He said he'd booked a flight to Sydney, but ended up in the wrong Sydney. I asked him to clarify. He said, I wanted Sydney, the one near Los Angeles. But I'm in Australia. Stared at him. He insisted there was a Sydney in California and that airlines shouldn't allow this confusion. I gently explained that Sydney, Australia is significantly more famous. The Sydney he meant was a tiny town. He said, well, nobody told me there were 2. I pointed out his ticket clearly said Sydney, Australia, with the airport code SYD. He claimed he didn't read the fine print. He demanded the airline pay for his mistake. I explained that wasn't possible. He asked if he could just fly back free since it's their fault. I said no. He asked how far Sydney, California was from here. I said about 12,000 kilometers. He asked, can I drive? I said, absolutely not. There's an ocean. He seemed genuinely surprised. He asked if travel insurance would cover this. I said, probably not. He spent an hour arguing with the airline. They didn't budge. He eventually bought a new ticket back to the US. He later posted that Sydney, Australia is a scam city that tricks American tourists. He got roasted in the comments. I work at a Darwin tourist information booth. An American woman asked how to drive to Bali from here. I said, you can't. Bali is in Indonesia, a separate country across the ocean. She said, but it's close to Australia, right? I confirmed it's relatively close by plane, about 4 hours, but there's no bridge or road. She asked if there was a ferry. I said there are cruises, but no regular car ferry. She seemed frustrated. So you're telling me I flew all the way to Australia and I can't even drive to Bali? I suggested she book a flight. She said she didn't want to deal with more airports. She asked if she could take a boat tour that stopped in Bali. I explained that's not how geography works. She asked why Australia doesn't build a bridge. I said it would be thousands of kilometers long and span open ocean. She said, well, you built the harbor bridge. Just make it longer. I didn't know how to respond. She left disappointed, muttering that Australia isn't as connected as they claim. I work at a Melbourne bookstore. An American man asked for a map of Australia with all the states labeled. I showed him one. He studied it, then said, this is missing some. So I asked which ones. He said, where's Sydney? I pointed to New South Wales. He said, no, the state of Sydney. I explained Sydney is a city in New South Wales, not a state. He insisted he'd heard people talk about Sydney, Australia, as if it were a state. I clarified that's just how cities are referenced internationally. He said, that's confusing. America has New York City and New York State. Why doesn't Australia do that? I said we do. Sydney is in New South Wales. He asked where Melbourne was. I showed him Victoria. He said, why isn't it called Melbourne State? I explained that's just not how we named things. He purchased nothing. Later, I overheard him telling his friend that Australian geography doesn't make sense. I work at a Gold Coast theme park. An American family visited during winter July in Australia. The father wore shorts and a tank top. Within an hour, he returned to guest services shivering. He said, you need to fix your weather. I asked what he meant. He said, it's July, it should be hot. This is freezing. Explained Australia is in the southern hemisphere, our seasons are reversed. July is winter here. He stared at me. That's not how seasons work, he said. I pulled up a diagram of Earth's axial tilt and hemispheres. He studied it, then said, but it's summer in America right now. I confirmed that. He said, so? It should be summer everywhere. I explained that's not scientifically possible. He asked if this was recent, or if Australia had always been backwards. I said always. He seemed genuinely troubled by this. His wife asked if Australia was planning to fix it. I said no, it's planetary mechanics, not a policy choice. He asked if global warming would even things out. Said that's not how climate change works. He asked to speak to a manager. My manager explained the same thing. He asked if we could at least warn American tourists about the reversed seasons. I pointed to our website, which lists seasonal information. He said, nobody reads websites. He left a review, saying the park refuses to accommodate Northern Hemisphere visitors. He demanded a refund. For the false advertising of July weather, we've learned something important. The world doesn't revolve around American expectations. Australia operates on its own systems, seasons, and standards. And that's perfectly fine. Every country has its own logic. If you've enjoyed this level of clarity and comedy, imagine having it every week, because that's exactly what subscribers get. This channel is for people who want to understand the world, not assume the world understands them. If that sounds like you, welcome, hit subscribe. Stay tuned for the next episode, where we explore how Europe handles American tourists who think the European Union is a single country. Trust me, it gets even better.